The unexpected encounter, Admiral Vexthera, stood tall on the command bridge of the Zilithian dreadnought Sovereign's Pride, her crystalline blue skin catching the light from the ship's displays. At 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and eyes that could see across multiple spectrums, she cut an imposing figure. For 2 centuries, she had commanded respect throughout the Galactic Trade Consortium, and her fleet of 12 warships had never encountered a problem they couldn't solve through superior firepower and intimidation. The bridge around her buzzed with activity as her crew of various alien species worked at their stations. The Zilithians had built their reputation on being the galaxy's premier military force, and their ships reflected that philosophy. Everything was designed to project power, from the massive weapon arrays to the intimidating angular hull designs that struck fear into pirates and rebels alike. "Admiral," called out Dr. Cortland, the ship's science officer, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonic tones of his species. "We're detecting an anomalous reading on the long-range sensors. There's a vessel approaching from the outer rim. Territories." Vexthera moved to the science station with fluid grace, her 4 arms working independently as she reviewed the data. The outer rim was supposed to be empty space, populated only by automated mining stations and the occasional smuggler. "Classification: unknown, Admiral. The vessel's configuration doesn't match any ship in our database. It's approximately 8 meters in length, heavily armored," and Cortland paused, his facial tendrils twitching with confusion. "It's broadcasting a standard peaceful approach signal." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in amusement. Unknown vessels in this sector were us, USUALLY, pirates trying to raid the trade routes. The fact that they were broadcasting peaceful intentions was either a sign of remarkable stupidity or unprecedented audacity. Display the vessel on screen. The main view screen shifted to show a ship that made Vexthera's size narrow. The vessel was unlike anything in the consortium's extensive database. It had clean lines and a purposeful design that spoke of advanced engineering. The hull was a deep grey color with subtle blue highlights, and while it was clearly a warship, it lacked the aggressive styling that most military vessels employed. "Admiral," reported Communications Officer Thylan, her 6 arms dancing across her console, "the vessel is requesting permission to approach. They're transmitting on standard diplomatic frequencies." Vexthera felt a twinge of surprise. In her experience, unknown vessels either fled when they saw her fleet or opened fire immediately. She had never encountered one that politely requested permission to approach. "What species? The transmission is coming from. Humans, Admiral." The bridge fell silent. Humans were a relatively new species to the galactic community, having only been discovered about 50 years ago. They occupied a small cluster of systems on the galaxy's edge, and were generally considered primitive by consortium standards. Their technology was crude, their ships small, and their diplomatic efforts clumsy. They were useful as a source of raw materials and labor, but hardly a species that warranted serious attention. A human vessel. Vexthera couldn't hide her disbelief. Out here, their ships barely have the range to reach the nearest trade station. "The readings are confirmed, Admiral. It's definitely human in origin, but..." Cortland's voice trailed off as he studied his displays. "The power signatures are unlike anything we've recorded from human vessels before." The Admiral made a decision that would change everything. "Open a channel. Let's see what these humans want." The view screen shifted to show the interior of the human vessel's bridge. Vexthera found herself looking at a human female in a crisp, military uniform. The woman appeared to be in her 40s, with dark hair pulled back in a professional style and intelligent brown eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. What struck the Admiral immediately was the complete lack of intimidation. In the human's posture, she sat comfortably in her command chair, projecting an aura of calm confidence. "I am Admiral Vexthera of the Zilithian Consortium Fleet," she announced, allowing her full authority to resonate in her voice. "You are in violation of established trade route protocols. Identify yourself and state your business." The human smiled, and it was neither the fearful grimace nor the aggressive snarl that Vexthera was accustomed to seeing from species facing her fleet. It was genuinely warm and professional. "Good day, Admiral. I'm Captain Alina Vasquez of the United Earth ship Prometheus. We're conducting a routine patrol of this sector." Routine patrol. Vexthera's mandibles clicked in confusion. "This sector is under consortium jurisdiction. Human vessels have no authority here." "With respect, Admiral, we're not operating under consortium jurisdiction. We're in open space, following standard interstellar navigation protocols, Captain." Vasquez's tone remained pleasant but firm. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding about territorial boundaries." Dr. Cortlandt quickly accessed the star charts, and his expression grew puzzled. "Admiral, she's technically correct. This sector is classified as neutral space in the galactic treaties." Vexthera felt a flash of irritation. She was used to species that either submitted to consortium authority or challenged it directly. This human was doing neither. She was calmly stating facts and treating this as a diplomatic discussion rather than a confrontation. "Captain Vasquez, your vessel is significantly larger than any human ship on record. Are you certain of your identification?" "Quite certain, Admiral. Though I should mention that our records indicate some discrepancies in the consortium's database regarding human capabilities." The captain's smile widened slightly. "Perhaps we could arrange a more formal meeting. I believe there's much we could discuss." A meeting. Vexthera was beginning to feel like she was losing control of the situation. "Captain, you're facing a consortium battle fleet. This is not a social occasion. I'm aware of your fleet's composition, Admiral. 12 vessels, mixed classes, approximately 4,000 personnel total. Quite impressive." Captain Vasquez leaned forward slightly. "But I think you'll find that a meeting would be mutually beneficial. We have information that might interest you." The casualness with which the human had assessed her fleet sent a chill through Vexthera. The captain had spoken as if she were discussing the weather, not facing down a military force that could reduce most civilizations to ash. "How do you know our fleet composition?" "We've been monitoring your approach for the past 6 hours, Admiral. Your ships are beautiful, by the way. Zilithian engineering has always been impressive." Captain Vasquez gestured to something off-screen. "Lieutenant Commander Chen, would you please share our sensor data with the Admiral?" The view screen split, showing both the human captain and a detailed tactical display. Vexthera's blood ran cold as she saw her own fleet displayed with perfect accuracy. Every ship was identified by class and designation, their weapon systems catalogued, their defensive capabilities analyzed. But more disturbing was the timestamp on the data. It went back over a week. "You've been tracking us," Vexthera said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Standard operating procedure, Admiral. We like to know who's in our neighborhood." Captain Vasquez's expression became more serious. "We've been aware of your patrol routes for some time. This meeting was ... inevitable." Dr. Cortland's voice was tight with shock. Admiral, the level of detail in this analysis, it would require sensor technology far beyond anything humans are supposed to possess. That's what I mean about discrepancies in your database, Doctor. Captain Vasquez turned her attention to the science officer. Dr. Cortlandt, isn't it? Your work on quantum field theory is quite respected in certain circles. The fact that this human knew her science officer's name, an area of expertise, made Vexthera's skin crawl. Captain, what exactly are you proposing? A simple exchange of information, Admiral. We invite you aboard the Prometheus for a formal meeting. You can bring a small diplomatic party, say 5 individuals. We'll discuss territorial boundaries, trade possibilities, and perhaps clear up some of those database discrepancies. Vexthera looked around her bridge. Her crew was staring at the displays with expressions of growing alarm. The human ship's casual monitoring of their fleet, combined with the captain's unshakable confidence, was creating an atmosphere of uncertainty that she had never experienced before. And if I refuse, she asked, then we'll respect your decision and withdraw from the area. Captain Vasquez replied immediately, though I think you'll find what we have to share quite interesting. For instance, are you aware that human settlements now exist in over 400 star systems? The bridge erupted in shocked murmurs. According to consortium records, humans occupied fewer than 20 systems. Dr. Cortlandt was frantically checking his databases, his expression growing more disturbed by the moment. That's impossible, Vexthera said flatly. Our intelligence networks would have detected such expansion, would they? Captain Vasquez's smile returned. Admiral, I think you'll find that human expansion strategies are ... unique. We've developed techniques that your intelligence services weren't designed to detect. You're claiming that your species has been conducting covert expansion for decades. Not covert, Admiral, quiet. There's a difference. Captain Vasquez leaned back in her chair. We simply haven't felt the need to announce every settlement and outpost. We prefer to let our actions speak for themselves. Lieutenant Commander Chen, who had been quietly working at his station, looked up. Captain, the Admiral's fleet is taking a defensive posture. I can see that, James. Thank you, Captain. Vasquez's attention returned to Vexthera. Admiral, I hope you don't interpret our invitation as a threat. We're simply offering information. Information that could reshape the galactic balance of power. Vexthera replied grimly. Information that reflects the current reality, Admiral. The question is whether you want to learn about it through dialogue or discover it through other means. The subtle threat in the captain's words was unmistakable. Vexthera realized she was facing a choice that would define her career and possibly the future of the consortium. She could order her fleet to attack, but the human ships' apparent technological superiority made the outcome uncertain. She could withdraw and report to her superiors, but then she would be admitting that a single human vessel had outmaneuvered her entire fleet. Or she could accept the invitation and learn exactly what humanity had become. Very well, Captain Vasquez. I'll come aboard your vessel, but I'm bringing a full security detail. Of course, Admiral. Dock at Bay 3. We'll have an honor guard waiting. Captain Vasquez's smile was genuinely warm. I think you'll find this meeting very enlightening. As the communication channel closed, Vexthera stared at the human ship on her view screen. In the space of a single conversation, everything she thought she knew about humanity had been turned upside down. These weren't the primitive, struggling colonists from the consortium's files. These were something else entirely. Admiral, Dr. Cortland said quietly, "What are your orders?" Vexthera straightened her shoulders. "Prepare a diplomatic shuttle." And Dr. Cortland, "Yes, Admiral, start running deep scans on that human vessel. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." As her crew prepared for the most important meeting of her career, Admiral Vexthara couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to discover that humanity had been playing a game entirely different from the one everyone else thought they were playing. The revelation, the shuttle bay of the UES Prometheus was unlike anything Admiral Vexthara had ever seen. Where consortium vessels favored ornate displays of power and intimidating architecture, the human ship's interior was a study in functional efficiency. Clean lines, advanced materials, and subtle lighting created an atmosphere that was both welcoming and undeniably sophisticated. As her diplomatic shuttle settled onto the deck, Vexthara noticed the human crew working around them with practiced precision. They moved with the confidence of people who knew their equipment inside and out. But there was something else in there, bearing a quiet readiness that spoke of extensive combat experience. "Admiral," whispered Ambassador Tissera, her senior diplomatic advisor, "the level of technology here is extraordinary. These aren't the crude human designs from our intelligence files." Dr. Cortland was scanning the area with his portable sensors, his expression growing more troubled by the moment. "Admiral, the alloy composition of this ship is unlike anything in our databases. The energy readings suggest power generation capabilities that shouldn't be possible with known human technology." Captain Vasquez was waiting for them at the shuttle ramp, flanked by two human officers in dress uniforms. The captain's smile was genuinely warm as she approached, but Vexthera noticed the subtle way the human escorts positioned themselves, professional, respectful, but ready for anything. "Admiral Vexthara, welcome aboard the Prometheus. I'm honored to have such distinguished guests." Captain Vasquez gestured to her companions. "This is Lieutenant Commander James Chen, my tactical officer, and Dr. Sarah Mitchell, our xenobiologist." Introductions were smooth and professional, but Vexthera noticed something that made her pause. Dr. Mitchell's eyes held the same calculating intelligence she'd seen in the galaxy's top scientists, but there was also something else, a depth of knowledge that suggested extensive experience with alien species. Dr. Mitchell Vexthera said carefully, "Your field of expertise is unusual for a species that has supposedly had limited contact with other civilizations." The human scientist smiled. "Not as unusual as you might think, Admiral. We've been studying xenobiology for quite some time. Shall we proceed to the conference room?" As they walked through the ship's corridors, Vexthera found herself constantly revising her assumptions. The passages were wider and more spacious than military vessels typically allowed, but every surface served multiple purposes. What looked like decorative panels were actually sophisticated display systems, and the seemingly simple wall fixtures contained sensor arrays that her science officer's equipment couldn't fully analyze. "Captain," Dr. Cortland said suddenly, "would you mind if I asked about your ship's power source? The energy readings are remarkable." Captain Vasquez glanced at Lieutenant Commander Chen, who nodded slightly. "We use a hybrid fusion system with quantum field stabilizers. It's a fairly standard design for our deep space vessels." The casual way she described technology that was decades beyond anything in the consortium's arsenal made Vexthera's skin crawl. "Standard design. For this class of ship, yes. We have different configurations for different mission profiles." Captain Vasquez led them into a conference room that was both elegant and functional. "Please, have a seat. Would you like refreshments?" The conference room's central table was made from a material that seemed to shift between transparency and opacity depending on the viewing angle. The walls displayed a real-time view of the surrounding space, showing both fleets in perfect detail. What made Vexthera-S blood run cold was the additional information overlaid on the display, tactical assessments, probable courses of action, and what appeared to be detailed psychological profiles of her senior officers. "Captain," she said slowly, "how long have you been studying us?" "That's a complex question, Admiral. We've been aware of the consortium for approximately 30 years. But our detailed analysis of your organization began about 15 years ago when we started planning for eventual contact." Captain Vasquez took a seat across from her. "We believe in thorough preparation." Ambassador Tissera leaned forward. 30 years. That's impossible. First contact with humanity was only established 50 years ago, and your species was considered barely space-capable at that time. Dr. Mitchell spoke up. "That's where the database discrepancies come in, Ambassador. The humans who made that first contact were, let's say, they were representing a very small portion of our civilization." "What do you mean?" Vexthara demanded. Captain Vasquez activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy with thousands of points of light scattered across multiple arms. "Admiral, when your people first encountered humans, they met representatives from our colonial frontier. These were settlers from a small group of systems that had been established as our initial expansion phase." The display zoomed in to show a small cluster of systems on the galaxy's edge. These colonies were instructed to present themselves as the extent of human civilization. They were told to appear primitive and struggling, to avoid attracting unwanted attention while we completed our true expansion. Dr. Cortland's mandibles were clicking rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "You're saying that first contact was a deception?" "Not a deception, Doctor. A carefully managed introduction. We wanted to observe galactic civilization before revealing our true capabilities." Lieutenant Commander Chen manipulated the display, showing the real extent of human territory. While the consortium believed they were dealing with a minor species of 20 systems, we were actually spread across over 400 worlds. The holographic display showed a vast network of human settlements, carefully positioned to avoid major trade routes and established alien territories. Vexthera realized she was looking at the most successful covert expansion in galactic history. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Our intelligence networks would have detected such expansion, would they?" Captain Vasquez asked gently. "Admiral, your intelligence services are designed to detect the expansion patterns of known civilizations. We used entirely different strategies." Dr. Mitchell stood and walked to the display. "Most species expand along established trade routes or toward resource-rich systems. They build large, easily detectable installations and maintain constant communication with their home worlds. We did none of those things." The display showed human settlements in systems that other species had written off as uninhabitable or worthless. We specialized in marginal worlds that others ignored. We developed closed-loop life support systems that required no external resources. We used tight beam communications that were virtually undetectable, and we built our installations inside asteroids, on the dark sides of moons, or in other locations that standard surveys would miss. "Silent expansion," Vexthera breathed. Asterisk. "Exactly. We studied every major civilization in the galaxy, learned their expansion patterns, their intelligence-gathering methods, their blind spots. Then we made sure our growth avoided all of them." Captain Vasquez's expression grew more serious. Admiral, while the consortium was cataloguing us as a primitive species, we were conducting the most comprehensive study of galactic civilization in history. Ambassador Tissera finally found her voice. Why go to such lengths? To hide your true capabilities. Because we're students of history, Ambassador. Every time a new species appears on the galactic scene with significant power, it triggers conflicts. Established civilizations either try to destroy the newcomer or absorb it. We wanted to avoid both outcomes until we were ready to engage on equal terms. Dr. Cortland was studying the display with growing horror. The scale of this operation, it would require coordination across hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships, millions of personnel. How did you maintain such secrecy? Compartmentalization. Doctor, each settlement knew only what it needed to know. The frontier colonies that made first contact genuinely believed they were representing all of humanity. They weren't acting, they were simply uninformed. Lieutenant Commander Chen smiled grimly. We've learned that the most convincing lies are the ones the liar believes. The implications were staggering. Vexthera realized she was sitting across from representatives of what might be the most powerful civilization in the galaxy, one that had been systematically studying and preparing for this moment for decades. What do you want from us? She asked. Partnership, Admiral. We've completed our expansion phase and our intelligence gathering. We're ready to emerge from the shadows and take our place in galactic civilization. Captain Vasquez leaned forward. But we want to do it correctly, with full transparency and mutual benefit. And if we refuse, then we'll proceed without you. Admiral, we're not asking permission to exist. We're offering the opportunity to be part of shaping how humanity integrates with the wider galaxy. The captain's tone remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath. We'd prefer to work with established civilizations rather than around them. Dr. Mitchell activated another display showing human technological achievements. We've developed solutions to problems that have plagued galactic civilization for centuries. Our closed-loop life support systems could revolutionize space travel. Our stealth technologies could make piracy obsolete. Our resource extraction methods could open up entire categories of previously uninhabitable worlds. In exchange for what? Ambassador Tissera asked. Recognition as an equal partner in galactic affairs. Access to established trade networks. Cultural exchange programs. The same things any civilization wants. Captain Vasquez stood. Admiral, we're not trying to conquer or replace anyone. We're simply ready to stop hiding. Vexthera felt the weight of history pressing down on her. The decision she made in this room would echo through the galaxy for generations. She could try to suppress this information, but the humans had clearly anticipated that possibility. They wouldn't have revealed themselves unless they were ready for any response. Captain, you've fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. The consortium leadership will need time to process this information. Of course, Admiral, we didn't expect an immediate answer, but we did want you to understand the reality of the situation before you made your report. Captain Vasquez walked to the window overlooking space. We've been patient for decades. We can wait a little longer. Dr. Cortland was still studying the tactical displays. Captain, if I may ask, what are your military capabilities? Lieutenant Commander Chen exchanged a glance with his captain, who nodded. Doctor, we currently maintain a fleet of approximately 2,000 vessels of various classes. Our technology is generally 20 to 30 years ahead of current galactic standards. We have defensive installations in 400 systems and the industrial capacity to triple our fleet. Size within 2 years, if necessary. The numbers hit Vexthera like a physical blow. The entire consortium fleet consisted of fewer than 800 vessels, and they were apparently facing an enemy with nearly triple their numbers and superior technology. You're telling us that humanity could conquer the galaxy if you chose to. We're telling you that we chose not to, Admiral. Conquest was never our goal. We wanted to understand galactic civilization and find our place in it. Captain Vasquez turned back to face her guests. We've spent decades studying every major species, learning their cultures, their strengths, their weaknesses. We know more about the galaxy than any single civilization in history. And now you're ready to use that knowledge. We're ready to share it. Admiral, we've identified threats to galactic stability that most civilizations don't even recognize. We've discovered resources that could benefit everyone. We've developed technologies that could solve problems that have existed for centuries. The captain's expression grew intense. We're not offering conquest. We're offering evolution. As the meeting continued, Vextera realized that everything she thought she knew about humanity, about galactic politics, about the future itself, had been wrong. The humans hadn't just been hiding their capabilities, they had been orchestrating one of the most sophisticated long-term strategies in galactic history. When they finally returned to their shuttle, Ambassador Tessara was the first to speak. Admiral, what do we tell the consortium leadership? Vexthera looked back at the human ship, its clean lines and purposeful design now taking on an entirely different meaning. We tell them the truth, Ambassador. We tell them that the galaxy just became a much more interesting place. As they flew back to the consortium fleet, Vexthera couldn't shake the feeling that she had just witnessed the end of one era and the beginning of another. Humanity had been playing a game that no one else even knew existed, and now they were ready to reveal the final score. The question was whether the rest of the galaxy was ready for the answer. Asterisk.